The next 3 questions were asked by the 12th grade of the Schulzentrum Culture in Bremen, Germany. You were asking why some bottle crops had blue water and some others didn't. I've noticed exactly the same on the bottle crops we have here in the hab. Some are a bit more blue than others. The fertilizer should be blue in the bottle crops, unless you forgot it, of course. And if you don't see it totally blue, it's just because it's a little bit less blue. Try to change the orientation or the light, or try putting white paper behind the bottle, and you will see that your bottle is not transparent but a little bit blue. So you received 3 seeds per bottle crops, and that's basically to grow new lettuce once your lettuce has been harvested. So keep them preciously, and you can use them afterwards to have more fresh lettuce. I advised you to put the bottle crops in different locations in the room so that you would get different lighting, different environmental conditions, so that you can compare different conditions for growing your lettuce and see which one is doing better than the other. And these 3 last questions were asked by the Oberschule am Wallering in Bremen, Germany. The first question was about the temperature of water to grow the seeds. Why we use cold water preferably than warm water? Well, this doesn't really matter actually. What we want for the seed, the little seed at the beginning, we want it to be 100% humid and at room temperature, so that it's not too cold, not too warm, and it germinates in good conditions. The second question concerned the cardboard. Why do the bottle crops come in a cardboard? Well, that's because if we don't close the bottle crops, algae and fungus will start growing in the water. Have you ever noticed when you leave a bottle of water somewhere in a room or in the sun, you will start having some microorganisms growing in it, and you don't want that for your plants. The last question was about the culture substrate we use for the plant, these little brown plugs. This is actually a mix of foam and organic material. So the organic material, basically it's soil, but put in a way that you have a plug, and the foam make it hold all together. And for the answer to this question, I'd like to thank Nico, who invented the bottle crop, who gave me the information to answer this question properly. The first question related to Mars was asked by 2 classes. The first one, the Oberschule am Wallering, Bremen, Germany, and the second one, the Ökumenisches Gymnasium zu Bremen. The question was, how do we get air into our habitat on Mars, and how do we get air in our habitat here in Hawaii? So on Mars, as you know, we cannot breathe the atmosphere outside, so we will have to either generate oxygen from the resources on Mars and then use this oxygen to breathe inside the habitat, or you can imagine at the beginning that astronauts will be bringing tanks of oxygen to be able to breathe. In our habitat here in Hawaii, it's different. We are not in a pressurized habitat. Of course, we have one window which we can't open, and we have one door which is always closed. We open the door only when we go on EVA, but the air circulates quite well with a fan in the ceiling, so we don't have any problem with pressurization and bringing oxygen into our habitat. So the next questions related to Mars were actually more related to growth of plants on Mars, and were asked by the Gymnasium Wegesack from Bremen, Germany. And the first question was, how do we plant lettuce on Mars? Or how do we plant plants on Mars? Well, plants are not totally defined yet, but most probably we will have little robots sowing seeds. Everything will be automated, because when we grow plants on Mars to sustain the astronauts, to feed them, we will need to have a very, very big greenhouse module. And we can't have the astronauts sowing all the seeds for the plants, because they would spend way too much time doing that and not focusing enough on their mission. So most probably little robots planting seeds. Here in Hawaii, how do we plant seeds? Well, like you guys, we just take the seed, put it in the plug, and wait for it to grow. Second question was related to the water. Where do we get water from on Mars? Well, again, plans for a mission to Mars are not totally defined yet, but the most probable option is that we will take ice. So as you know, there is ice water on Mars. We'll take this, melt it, and extract and have water from this melted ice that we can use to grow plants, to use for the astronauts, etc. Third question, what happens if we run out of food? Well, we'll just start eating each other. No, I really hope this scenario doesn't happen. Here in Hawaii, it is very unlikely to happen. We have really a lot of food for 4 months. On Mars, missions will be planned very, very carefully so that people cannot be running out of food. The last question related to plants on Mars was asked by the Oberschule am Wadering in Bremen, Germany. It concerned the growth of plants. What is faster, on Earth or on Mars? Well, my answer will be very short. We haven't grown plants on Mars yet, so we don't know, basically. There are currently some experiments on the ISS with a centrifuge studying little seedlings to study basic physiological and genetical activity and see how little, let's say, 2 to 3 or 4 days old plants react to different gravity levels. But we haven't tested a full growth cycle of plants in Martian gravity. So we don't know where plants are going to grow faster. Well, there are several options. It could be solar arrays, it could be fuel cells, a nuclear reactor, or other solutions that we haven't even invented yet. Right now I'm in the workshop of the high seas habitat, and I can show you a little bit and explain you a little bit what power systems we use. We have batteries here which are charged with solar arrays outside collecting sunlight. We also have a fuel cell as a second source of energy in case the solar array fails, or if it has been raining for days and we are totally out of power in the batteries, we can use the fuel cell. The fuel cell is a hydrogen-based power source. And in case this fuel cell fails, we have a third source of power, which is a generator. So the first question related to the mission was asked by Jonathan from the Ökumenisches Gymnasium zu Bremen, Germany. It was about our selection. How did we get selected? What were the steps? Well, first we had to submit a CV with our motivations to do this mission. Then we had to do a psychological survey with a little math and English test. And that was the first round. When we passed this first round, we were invited for an interview. So we had a Skype interview with the selection committee. And after the interview, they downsized the group to 9 people. And these 9 people were the crew members, 6 crew members and 3 reserve crew members. Then all these people did Skype calls with each other to get to know each other and to know who would get along well with who. And in the end, they selected 6 people from this group to be the participant in the first mission. Another question related to the mission was asked by Jakob from the Ökumenisches Gymnasium zu Bremen, and Jakob was asking why we chose the site of the volcano in Hawaii to simulate Mars. Well, this is because the environment around us is just volcanic rocks, volcanic red rocks, and it really looks like a Martian landscape. The second reason of the location of the habitat is because it's very far away from everything. We are far away from human life, animal life, and plant life. Basically, when we look through our window, we just see red rocks all over. The third reason why this habitat is located here on the Mauna Loa volcano in Hawaii is because this region on Earth is very similar to the Tharsis region on Mars.
I applied to High Seas because of my volunteer experience as an amateur astronomer and my teaching assistant experience at the University of Alberta Observatory. And because I'm going to be graduating with my PhD in physics soon, I wanted to have a stepping stone onto something bigger and better.
We had technology at KSC that we wanted to progress in analog studies, and it also seemed like a good opportunity to advance understanding for human spaceflight, so I thought it would be a good mission to apply for.
Well, I've always been passionate by space, and especially human spaceflight and human space exploration. And when I saw that I had a chance to contribute actively to human Mars exploration by doing this mission, I didn't hesitate 1 minute.
So for me, it was really, since I want to develop procedures and technologies for future long-duration manned spaceflight, I really wanted to understand what it felt like to be isolated and to be in this type of extreme environment. So I decided the best way to do that would be to participate in these studies. So I'm slated to participate in this one as well as a few others.
I wanted to do something different, and I wanted to be part of something that was leading toward the manned space program.
You know what, I do miss my family, but at the same token, I feel like this is very important for the future of my family and humanity in general. I think moving forward is important, and so although I do miss my family greatly, I think this is the right way to go.
I miss my family, but I also moved away from home to do the other things in my career, including flying and serving the armed forces. So it doesn't really change much for me.
Well, my mother is deceased, my brother is traveling in the military, and my father is back home where I grew up, so my family's scattered right now anyway. I miss my father and family dearly, but if I were living and working back at home, we would be in the same distant situation, and they're very supportive of me being here, so I think they're happy that I made the decision.
So when my family learned about me being accepted in the High Seas program, they basically told me that if I didn't go, they would be unhappy. So my family is excited for me to be here, and they understand that the 4 months is a very short period in the big scheme of things.
Do I regret my choice, knowing that I have a family back home? No. Actually, I've been living abroad since 4 years now, so I've been far away from my family since 4 years, and even before that, actually since 7 years now, I've been living far away from my family as well in France. So being here is the same thing. It's just a bigger distance, and we cannot Skype, we can just write emails, but it's not much different.
My undergraduate degree is in Geography and Geographic Information Systems. I'm presently working on a master's degree in Aeronautical Science, and I have a background in aviation, having flown for 10 years in the American Air Force.
So I did a first master in France in General Engineering, focusing on energy production and transformation, and then I did a second master in Aerospace Engineering at Purdue University in the USA.
I studied a Bachelor of Science and Master of Science in Chemical Engineering at Manhattan College in New York City.
So my bachelor's degree was formally in microbiology with a focus on biotech and DNA sequencing. From there, I did medical risk management and emergency medicine, and then I've now currently focused on human spaceflight.
So I started with an undergraduate education in physics, and I graduated with a general physics degree called an honors physics degree. I went on into the field of condensed matter physics, where I study the properties of light interaction with matter, specifically silicon quantum dots. And that's allowed me to pursue a career as an experimental physicist and hopefully get into the space sciences.
When I was little, no, because I didn't know too much about the space program, but when I was in my early 20s and became aware of NASA, that's when I wanted to become one.
Yeah, I've wanted to be an astronaut since I was little, but I originally actually wanted to be LAPD SWAT, which is like the special forces of police departments. So, but that changed at about 8 or 9.
Have I ever wanted to be? Yes. I've also wanted to be a scientist and an aviator, and I think I'm well in the way of being able to do all three.
I think that my dream of being an astronaut probably started when I was about 4 years old. So I've been doing everything I can to kind of stay on the track of being an astronaut. But for me, that involves my background in physics.
As far as I remember, I have always wanted to be an astronaut since I'm a little girl. So yes, that's always been my dream.